Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Today we are going to be discussing the Windows 10 Fall Creator Update, which just became available to the public yesterday, and specifically we're going to be focusing on game performance. I went into this kind of like, I wanted to benchmark it, so basically what I did was I benchmarked it before I updated and then immediately after updating. And going into it, I wasn't sure really, I was expecting it to either A, be exactly the same or within the margin of error before updating, or B, that Microsoft would have completely bricked game performance and it would just perform absolutely awful. But nothing could be further from either of those expectations that I had going into this. And in fact, the game performance improvements that I've been seeing have not only been there, but they have been huge. I'm talking like 10 to 27% huge. It's a massive performance improvement on the Fall Creator Update, which is just insane. And we'll be touching on all of that. We're going to be talking about averages, 1% lows, and showing some side-by-side comparisons before the update as well as after the update. But first, what is the Fall Creator Update? Well, it's basically the newest update to Windows 10. It's a pretty big update. You know, it's changing quite a few things. They're adding in some features and stuff like that. If you want to get a full breakdown on all the new features, I'm going to leave a link down in the description below over to How To Geek, where they've got a full layout and a description pretty much on everything that they've introduced in the Fall Creators Update. Nothing really of which kind of appealed to me, except in the Task Manager. They're now showing GPU usage. That was pretty much the only one that sounded kind of interesting. Everything else in here really didn't seem that interesting to me, honestly, but I was curious to see how the game performance would change, if it would change at all. So I did this on my test system along with the i7 7700K, which I do keep overclocked at 5 gigahertz, along with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And for all of my testing, I used the same exact graphics card, which is Vega 56. I had that at 1440p, and I did all of the games at high settings. So I didn't go through and do multiple graphics cards. I just did one graphics card, one set of settings on high at 1440p, so we can just kind of have an apples-to-apples comparison between the two different operating systems, and my results were astounding. Now, before I get into those results, I do want to touch on what other people are reporting online. So I did look around to see if anyone else was talking about the game performance, and I did notice that apparently Razer machines are having issues with the Windows 10 Fall Creator Update. So if by some chance you happen to be running a Razer machine, like a Razer laptop or something, then you're probably going to have issues with this update. And just as a PSA, you should not update right now. The reason that they're pointing to is that Razer needs to introduce some of their own driver revisions for their systems and stuff. So if you happen to be running a Razer laptop or a Razer PC, then you should definitely wait on the Fall Creators Update. But for anyone else out there that has built their own system, you should be absolutely fine. So far, I've updated 3 of the systems here in my house, and so far they've all gone off without a hitch. And the one that I was benchmarking on, I saw massive frame rate improvements in all of the games that I tested. And just to give you some further information on what I was utilizing in the testing, I did have the game mode on in both of the testing scenarios. So game mode was being utilized, and I used the same exact settings on Vega 56 in both scenarios. I didn't overclock the graphics card at all. All I did was do a custom fan curve, and I did increase the power limit on the card by 50%, which I always do on all of my cards anyway. I always push the power limit up to the max so it can get its full potential whenever the card is running. But other than that, I didn't do any manual overclocking on the GPU. So really what we're seeing here, like I said, is a straight up apples to apples showdown between the previous Creators Update, which came out a few months ago, and the latest Fall Creators Update. And the performance changes were absolutely massive. Without a doubt, the game where I saw the biggest change was on Rainbow Six Siege, which is great news for me because that's honestly the game that I play more than anything right now. And that saw a performance increase at the averages going from 91 FPS up to 115. That is a 26% change in performance just by updating the Windows 10 operating system. Like, I don't know what Microsoft has done here, but they've done an impeccable job with getting the game performance working a lot better on the Fall Creator Update than they did on the previous Creators Update, which when that came out, they were talking about game mode and how much it was going to optimize the games to run better. And then it came out and it just kind of fell flat, and it didn't really do a whole lot at all for game performance. So it was just, and for some people, the games ended up running worse. So I was like, well, did they just really bork the previous version and they kind of fixed it? Or is this version just really finally a great version of Windows, which is using less system resources in the background and making the games be able to see their full potential? All of these games that I benchmarked were at DirectX 11, so it's not seeing any DX12 enhancements, but every single game here ran better, except for one. There was Batman Arkham Knight. That only saw a change in performance of 1 FPS in the averages, so very minimal change there, pretty much within the margin of error on Batman Arkham Knight, but everything else that I tested here across the board was absolutely huge. So this is definitely a fantastic update from Microsoft on Windows 10 for the Creator Update. Now, if you do want to update your Windows 10 version right now, they are kind of like phasing it out. They're rolling it out in phases here. So if you don't want to wait for it to update, I'll leave a link down in the description below to how you can manually update your system. You just have to basically go to the update page on the Microsoft website and just click Update Now and download the installer, and it'll just update your system automatically. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes depending on your system and if you're running a mechanical hard drive or solid state drive and your internet connection, all of that. But it took me, like I said, about 30 minutes roughly on each system, so it doesn't take a terribly long amount of time, and it should give you a decent bump in performance. I was only testing on one card here at 1440p high settings, but I would expect this to, scale to pretty much any card out there. And if you have happened to update to the Creator Update, then please let me know the performance changes that you have seen down in the comments below. I would certainly like to see this kind of, brought back and people talking about it and saying, they've seen the same thing, or if they haven't seen the same thing, then I definitely am curious to see that. I did go back and I double-checked all of my settings, looked at the side-by-side comparisons like you're going to be seeing on your screen to make sure the clock speeds were all right and nothing was changed there. And that's kind of the reason why I use the high preset, is so that I could, not have anything being introduced there that could kind of mess with anything. I didn't want to have any questions in the back of my mind as to whether I missed a setting or something like that. So I just used the high preset, and yeah, pretty much across the board, seeing gigantic gains in performance. So let's go into the average FPS now and then the 1% low, and you'll see what the changes actually were. So looking at this now, you can see that Batman Arkham Knight, as I previously mentioned, roughly the same. We only went from 107 up to 108 on the Fall Creator Update, which is a gain, but it's only 1 FPS, so that's pretty much margin of error type stuff. On Deus Ex Mankind Divided, we went from 53 to 67. That's huge. That's a 14 FPS increase. That basically takes the game from being a sub 60 FPS game to running over 60 frames. That's freaking awesome. Come on, are you kidding me? Ghost Recon Wildlands, that went from sub 60 FPS to getting 70 FPS average. Rainbow Six Siege, as I previously had said, went from 91 up to 115, a 26% increase. Middle-earth Shadow of War went from 64 to 77, and rounding off the list of games that I tested was The Division, which went from 70 to 84. So that's freaking awesome to see this, and for anyone not running a Razer system, at least I would say go out and grab the Fall Creator Update, because I haven't had any issues with it. It hasn't really broken anything on me. I did have to update my Start as Back install, which is kind of like a Windows shell for the Start button, because I don't like the Windows 10 version of it, so I use Start as Back. If you want to get it at startasback.com. So I did have to update that because the previous version I was running, which was much older version, wasn't working on the latest iteration of Windows 10. So I had to update that, but that's understandable. But everything else is working so far. My benchmarking software is all working fine as far as Afterburner, Fraps, PresentMon, everything is working great. My Sony Vegas is working. I had issues with that initially on the previous Creator Update, but on this one, I've not had any issues with that. Looking at the 1% lows now, you can see here once again, all of our numbers increasing across the board. The only exception really being Batman Arkham Knight, which only got a 2 FPS increase for the 1% low of all frame times captured. Deus Ex Mankind Divided went from 44 to 53. Wildlands went from 47 to 56. Division went from 41 to 52. So great increases all the way across here at the 1% low, and the averages. Some of these games, like I had said, kind of going from the area of like, it's going to be kind of rough, kind of shaky playing these games at high settings and getting smooth performance at 1440p, and going into the area of you're going to be averaging over 60 frames per second. So all I got to say is good job, Microsoft. You finally did a good job. Like, you usually are known for just breaking everything, but this time around, they actually did a good job with updating the operating system and actually giving us gamers an improvement in performance. So sweet. Like, that's great news for me, especially as someone who only plays Rainbow Six Siege, that I'm going to see a 26% improvement in performance. Awesome. That's freaking great. So nothing but really good news here to report on the Fall Creator Update, which I wasn't really sure if I was going to have to report in this video. I was expecting it to kind of go the other way, but it seems to not. It's all good news. So good on you once again to Microsoft. If you guys enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Leave a like on it down below and subscribe if you're not already. Leave a comment, especially if you've already updated to the Fall Creator Update. If you had a chance to kind of maybe run a benchmark or two before you updated, and then you benchmarked it afterwards. If you saw any changes in the games that you play, let us know down in the comments. That will certainly help spread more information to everyone out there, and hopefully we get a good list of games out down there that I haven't tested, because I only tested half a dozen games here, but it seems pretty consistent that in 5 out of the 6 games we saw a very big improvement. So this is really good news, and yeah, I'm going to go and play some games now, probably Rainbow Six Siege on the new Fall Creator Update, and hopefully get a lot more frames here. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Ta-ra.